Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into the history of food and exercise advice.
Just stuff we think we know, like what's good for us and what's supposed to make us happy.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're going to be using excerpts from Jennifer Hecht's book, The Happiness Myth.
And we'll see how these ideas about, food and exercise, how they've changed over time. And what's really interesting is how they kind of reflect.
Yeah, the cultural anxieties, right? Like what people were worried about.
Absolutely. At different times in history.
Okay, so are you ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with this thing called Fletcherism?
Fletcherism.
Yeah,
You ever heard of that?
I have. Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange one.
I had never heard of this before reading this book.
Yeah, so basically, Horace Fletcher, he was the guy behind this whole thing in the 19th century.
Okay.
He believed that chewing
Ewing.
each bite of food
Okay.
like an insane number of times until it basically swallowed itself. So what, you're just sitting there chewing for hours?
Pretty much.
Ah.
He thought that was the key to health and happiness and even weight loss. Can you believe it?
I mean, on the one hand, I guess it makes sense, like really breaking down your food.
Right.
But also that just sounds so boring. Like
I
imagine
know, right? Like a dinner party where everyone's just
silent, just
Yeah.
chewing, chewing, chewing.
exactly. But he had, believe it or not, some pretty high-profile supporters, like
Right.
William James,
Oh, wow.
the philosopher. Yeah.
Okay, so from chewing, let's move on to another big name, John Harvey Kellogg.
Oh, Kellogg. Yeah, the Battle Creek Sanitarium guy.
Yes. I mean, this guy was
A little out there too, you could say.
he was a big advocate for vegetarianism, right?
Yeah, he was all about a vegetarian diet, and he actually believed that eating meat
Okay.
was like this kind of animalistic tendency that held you back from
Spiritual purity.
yeah, spiritual and physical well-being. And get this, he also thought the same thing about sex.
Wait, so he's connecting meat and sex?
In his mind, they were both like these primal urges that you needed to suppress.
Okay, so the sanitarium was all about like cleansing yourself of these urges.
Yeah, it was like a place where people went to kind of purify their bodies and minds.
With enemas, right? I've heard
I-
about these enemas.
Yeah, enemas, hydrotherapy, and this super strict diet of the blandest vegetarian food you can imagine.
No meat, obviously.
Oh, and graham crackers were a big part of it?
Wait, graham crackers, like the same ones we eat today.
Yep. But back then, Kellogg believed they would, get this, help suppress sexual desire.
That's just wild. I mean, now we think of graham crackers as like a treat.
I know, it's crazy how the meaning of food can change so much.
And speaking of changing meanings, what about Kellogg's brother, Will Keith Kellogg? Wasn't he the cereal guy?
Yeah, so John Harvey was all about purity and self-denial, right?
Right.
But Will Keith, he saw the business opportunity in breakfast cereal.
Because he's the one who added the sugar.
Yep, added sugar to the flakes, ditched the whole anti-sex message, and basically created the cereal industry as we know it.
Wow. Talk about a marketing makeover. I mean, it's the same flakes, but they went from like a path to purity to a symbol
It's a
of,
slim physique.
yeah, like a sexy, healthy lifestyle.
It really shows you how food isn't just, about eating.
It's about culture, too.
Totally. It reflects our values and, like we said, our anxieties.
So from Fletcherism, all that chewing, to the Battle Creek Sanitarium, we've seen some pretty wild ideas about diet.
Yeah, and it's all tied to this idea of finding happiness, right?
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about exercise, because that's a whole other...
Oh yeah, exercise, that's a whole other can of worms.
I know. So exercise, it's interesting how our views on that have changed too, right? Like back in ancient Greece.
Oh yeah, they were all about physical strength, like it was important for military prowess.
Right. But then you get to the Victorian era and suddenly it's all about,
Overexertion.
yeah, they were
Yeah.
worried about like nervous exhaustion from too much exercise.
Like it would deplete your vital energies.
What a change.
Mm.
And then, of course, World War I comes along and suddenly
Yeah.
it's back to,
Being strong and fit.
right, for the war effort. And then by the 1970s, it's all about,
Jogging.
and the jogging craze,
Yeah.
heart health, and of course the rise of
Yes.
gyms everywhere. So it's fascinating how even something like exercise, which seems so straightforward,
Yay.
it's
Yeah.
also been shaped by like the cultural context.
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on in the world around us?
So, wow, we've covered a lot already, from chewing to enemas to jogging.
It's been a wild ride.
What's next on this journey through the history of health and happiness?
Well, next we're going to dive into something you might not expect. Bubble baths.
Bubble baths.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They have a surprisingly interesting history.
I never would have guessed.
We'll talk about everything from ancient Rome to Hollywood.
I'm intrigued.
It'll be fun. Okay, so bubble baths.
Bubble baths. Yeah, you said they have a history.
Oh, they do. It's more interesting than you might think. I mean, I guess I just think of like, kids playing in the tub.
Right, but actually bubble baths go all the way back to ancient Rome.
Really?
Yeah, and they've been shown in, Hollywood films and stuff.
Like I'm picturing that scenes from The Women with was her name Joan Crawford?
Yes, with all the bubbles.
That's like peak bubble bath,
Yeah,
right?
totally. And it's interesting how they went from like just a way to get clean.
To like a whole luxury experience.
Exactly. Like for women especially, it became a symbol of, leisure time and even sexuality.
Hmm. That's interesting because now it seems like bubble baths are less popular.
Yeah, people are busier, right?
Right, and showers are just quicker.
But they've tried to like transfer that bubble bath feeling to the shower.
Oh yeah, with all those like shower gels and aromatherapy stuff.
Right. Like we still want that sense of relaxation and escape even if we don't have time for a bath.
Like the idea of the bubble bath is still appealing even if we don't actually take them anymore.
Exactly. So speaking of rituals and things like that,
Good.
Hecht also talks about this idea of self-denial.
Self-denial
Yeah.
as a path to happiness, that seems kind of backwards.
I know, right? But think about it, like fasting for religious reasons?
Yeah.
Or even like those really strict diets?
Oh, right, like when people give up sugar or carbs or whatever.
Yeah, or like extreme workouts where you push yourself to the limit.
So you're saying there's something about denying ourselves that can actually make us happy?
In a way, yeah, it can give you a sense of control,
Like you're stronger than your desires.
Yeah, and also like you're being virtuous or like you're part of a community of people who are doing the same thing.
Huh. I guess that makes sense, like if you think about it.
And Hetch gives this really interesting example. She compares these two towns, Ocean Grove and Asbury Park.
Those are both in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, so Ocean Grove was founded by Methodists, very strict rules.
Like what kind of rules?
No alcohol, no tobacco, no dancing.
Wow. Sounds pretty intense.
It was all about self-control and religious devotion. So like happiness through denial.
Okay, and Asbury Park.
Total opposite, like boardwalk, amusement park, lots of fun.
So more about indulgence.
Exactly. But here's the thing. These two towns were right next to each other.
So you had people living these totally different lifestyles side by side.
And they actually influenced each other. It wasn't like one was right and one was wrong.
So it's more complicated than just saying, like, self-denial is good or bad.
Right. It's about how these different ideas about happiness can exist together and even, like, learn from each other.
That's really interesting. So we've gone from bubble baths to self-denial. Where are we headed next?
Okay, now we're going to get into this idea that Hecht calls the public-private life.
Public-private life. What's that?
Basically, it's about how we share our private experiences, like grief and fear,
Okay.
through public rituals or even, like, the media.
So, like, even though we feel these things personally, we also experience them collectively?
Yeah, and she says this isn't new. Like, the ancient Greeks had these festivals.
What kind of festivals?
Well, one was called Thesmophoria. It was for women only,
Okay.
and it was dedicated to Demeter, the goddess of agriculture.
So, like, harvests and stuff.
Right, but it was also about mourning and fasting, like symbolizing the cycle of life and death.
So it was a way for women to come together and deal with, like, loss and grief.
Exactly. And then there were the Dionysian mysteries. Those were a lot more wild.
Wild how?
Like music, dancing, wine, very ecstatic.
So, like, the opposite of thesmophoria.
Kind of, yeah. It was about letting go of inhibitions, connecting with something bigger than yourself.
Interesting. So both of these festivals, even though they were different, were about sharing emotions with other people.
Exactly. And Heck says we still do this today, but in different ways.
Like how?
Well, she thinks the news plays a big role, especially like sensationalized stories.
Oh, yeah, like disasters and stuff. We can't seem to get enough of that.
Right, and she says it's not just about being morbidly curious.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's like a way of sharing in a collective experience of like grief and fear, even if it's happening to other people.
That's a really interesting way to think about it. So we're not just passively consuming the news.
Right, we're actually participating in something bigger, like a modern day ritual.
Okay, so before we go any further, can you just sum up what we've learned so far about food and exercise advice and all this stuff?
Sure, so basically what we think is healthy or will make us happy, it changes all the time.
Right, like what was popular 100 years ago seems crazy now.
Exactly. And it's always connected to what's going on in society, like our fears and anxieties. So we've gone from like chewing forever to being terrified of exercise.
And enemas. Don't forget the enemas.
Right, enemas. Like we're always searching for the answer, the one right way to be healthy and happy.
But the answer keeps changing.
Exactly. And it's always like tied to what people are worried about at the time.
It makes you wonder, like, what will people in the future think about our current obsessions?
Oh, totally. Like all the calorie counting and, crazy workout challenges.
Okay, they'll probably think we were nuts.
Probably. But it's a good reminder that we should always be questioning things, just because something is popular or even, like, scientifically proven.
Doesn't mean it's right for everyone.
Exactly.
Speaking of science, Hecht also talks about how a lot of the studies that have influenced us,
Oh, yeah, the
they
studies.
weren't always that great.
Like the data was limited or the methods were flawed.
And we just take it all as, like, gospel truth.
Right. But science is always changing. What we think is true today might be totally different tomorrow.
It's like that study on jogging, the one that said it makes you live longer,
Yeah, and then the guy who did the study,
died while jogging.
ironic, isn't it?
Totally. So maybe we should be a little more skeptical of all the health advice out there.
I think so. It's good to be informed, but you also have to listen to your own body and, what feels right for you. It's like we're always looking for that quick fix, that magic bullet.
Yeah, the easy answer.
But maybe happiness isn't about following a set of rules.
Maybe it's about understanding yourself and what truly makes you feel good.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big takeaways from this whole deep dive.
What is it?
We need to have a more holistic view of health and happiness, not just focus on, like, one thing.
Like, it's not just about the food you eat or the exercise you do.
It's about everything: your physical health, your emotional well-being, your relationships, your purpose in life.
It's about finding balance, right?
Exactly. And, maybe even allowing yourself a little indulgence sometimes.
Like a bubble bath.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into food and exercise advice,
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
we've seen how these ideas have changed over time, how they're connected to our culture and our anxieties.
And hopefully, by understanding the history,
We can make more informed choices about our own health and happiness. It's not about finding the one right answer. It's about finding what works for you.
Absolutely. And maybe instead of asking, what should I be doing to be happy?
We should ask.
What does a meaningful and fulfilling life look like for me?
That's a great question. I think that's a perfect place to end.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been fun.